All right, I was busy talking and didn't realize that the mic was off. Apologies. So I'm saying good evening, everyone. And we had indicated that we wanted to have a look at functions, wrap up that, and then after that, we can start doing some worksheets and looking at how best we arrange the assessment portions of this particular module. So without any further ado, let's jump into what functions are, how do we go about creating them, and how do we execute them. So whenever we talk about functions, we're talking about a packaged set of instructions that perform a task. And truth be told, the concept of a function is not something that is new to you. You have been using it in various shapes and forms. For example, whenever you make use of the print command, print is actually a function. Whenever you use the input command, input is actually a function. And whenever you use the range command, range is actually a function. So the concept of a function is really not new to you. We might not have referred to it in that context, but you have been making use of it since we started. What we want to now look at is how do we create our own functions? Because the functions that you would have been exposed to are functions which would have been created by someone else, and you are making use of these functions. So we want to peel back the layer so that we can understand what are the key components in terms of building up our own function. And I think that takes us to how we define a function. So let me just explain what is happening in that block of code. I'm creating a function called greet. How do I know it is a function? We use the def keyword. So that really means define function. DE define F function. So we are saying we are defining a function called greet. And then we need to define the body of the function. Inside of the body of this function, we have one command, which is the print statement. So whenever we execute this greet function, it should carry out the statements which you are seeing right there in the body of the function. And right below, we're actually executing the function. And we execute functions by giving the name of the function. So this is a pretty simple example so that we can wrap our head around what a function is, how to create it, and how to make use of it. Any questions? All right, so that means that is understood. So let's do a quick demonstration. So let's create something called program3.py. And let me see if you remember anything from what I've just said. I want to create a function. What is the first thing I'm going to type?
First, you have to define the function.
Yeah, so DEF.
So we want to define the function.
Name the
All right.
function.
I'm going to give the function a name. Let's
Um,
say hello. Now you're going to realize that functions need a parenthesis. So that's the bracket. And then the
Open and
syntax
close.
says we need to have a colon at the end. And then we enter. By default, when I enter, notice the editor is telling me that the statements that I now type, they have to be indented. So we're just going to do a click a print. Let's do hello world. And we save. So what I've now done is I have created a function that says, well, that has the name say hello. And whenever I execute this function, it should display hello world on the screen. So let's execute this and see what obtains. And then I'll ask you a question. So Python say hello. Sorry, my bad. It's Python prog3. So I've executed the file and I am not seeing anything.
You have to call up the function.
Okay, good. So remember,
you have to,
defining the function is just the first phase or stage. If we
For it
want
to
to actually
execute, you have to
use
call
the
on it
function,
first.
so def say hello.
so first thing that we need to do is to define the function, which we have just done. And as I demonstrated, if that's all that we do, then we won't be able to execute the function. So it's a two-step process. We define the function or create the function, and then we have to call the function. So I'm now going to go ahead and call the function. Say hello, and I put the parentheses. Let's save that, and let's re-execute the command, and let's see what happens. We're now obtaining our output as we intend. Hello world is being displayed. So this is one statement that we have associated with the function or one command. Let's say I want to print some new lines. Let's say I also want to do some calculation. So let's say that answer is equal to 10 plus 3. And then I want to print the total is answer. So I now have 3 lines of code which are associated with my say hello function. And I'm going to execute, and we're going to see what obtains. All right, I'm not, oh, I should have had more slash ends. I only put 1. So instead of it going down 3 lines as I had intended, it went down 1 line and print some ends. But that's neither here nor there. You see that we're doing more than one things inside of this function. It prints the hello world command. It added the 10 and the 3, giving us 13. Put that 13 inside the answer variable. And then it printed the total is 13. Remember, answer would be the variable that holds the result, and we're seeing that being displayed on the screen. So we have created our first function. All right, so let's jump back to where we were. So we know how to create a function, and this is the basic function. The next step on the learning trajectory is to appreciate the fact that functions can accept inputs. These inputs, we'll give it a fancy name, we'll call it parameters, but it's just an input or a set of inputs. So whenever you hear we talk about parameters, you know that we're talking about inputs. So how do we define or make allocation for the inputs? We simply use variable names inside of the function. So in this case, where we're looking at the add function, the add function takes in two pieces of information. It takes in an x value and it takes in a y value. So two pieces of input, x and y. And then what we are going to do is we're going to add x and y. We're going to get a value. And then this function now makes use of a keyword called return. And what return does is it sends out an output from the function that can then be used. So in other words, we're doing two things, or we're making two additional steps in terms of our knowledge base. We are saying that a function can accept inputs, and we are also saying that a function can return or generate an output, which is a different concept from printing the output. So let's have a look at this in action. All right, let's modify what we have here. So it's a say hello function, but let us say that we want to display a message to the user. So what we could pass into the function is, let's say, a variable called name. And so what we want this function to do is to display hello world. That's one. And then it gives a greeting to the user. So let's put another print statement. And let's say hello, followed by whatever is in name. I'm so happy to meet you. So I'm creating a new function, or I'm modifying the old function so it does something different. So the function still says say hello. This time though, it takes in an input. The input is going to be placed inside of this parameter or variable called name. The definition for this function is it should display hello world, and then it should display a message to the person indicating that you are happy to see them. So how do we call this function? Well, it's going to be similar. The name of the function, which is say hello, and the open brackets. However, this time, because you have defined the function accept an input, then you must specify what the input is. So let's say Sharon. and then we execute. So hello world, and then it says, hello Sharon, I'm so happy to meet you. Which means if we change it from Sharon to somebody else, I'm still missing one of my slashes. 1, 2, 3, I have an extra. So let's say we change it from Sharon to David, and we execute. Hello world, and then it says, hello David. So notice the name changes because we are calling the function with a different name as its input. So hello David, I am so happy to meet you. So we're doing good so far in terms of understanding that our function can take in. So let me get rid of all of this now. And let's now do something that might be more real world applicable. Let me define a function called calculate. And I want calculate to take in two things. I want it to take in num1 and I want it to take in num2. So it's taking in two numeric values. What do I want to do with these numeric values? Well, I want to be able to add them together. So I'm saying that answer is equal to num1 plus num2. And when I'm finished, I want to return answer. All right, good. So now that we have our function, the next thing is, well, we want to make use of the function. And in terms of making use of the function, as you know, we're going to call the function name. In this case, the name of the function is calculate. And it takes in two things. It takes in num1 and it takes in num2. So what is happening here is that 10 is going to go into num1 and 5 is going to go into num2. Therefore, 10 plus 5 gives us 15. We put 15 inside of the variable answer. And then the last line says we are to return answer. Once there is a return, then what we need to do is we need to assign the output of the function to some variable. Let me call this variable result. So what we are doing here is we're saying that we're calculating by adding 10 plus 5. That's what the internal operation says. And then when we are through, we want to return whatever is inside answer as our output. And then we can print. This is at the wrong level. Oh, let me show you what just happened. I mean, this might be a learning. So when I looked at it, it's telling you that it does not know anything called result. And the reason for that is it's almost as if we wanted this statement to be inside of the function. Notice, if you look at this line, it means that it is inside the function, but it's not at the right place because it should have been indented. So if it were truly inside of the function, then it would be way out here. So that's not where it was. It was about one space off. Now, I don't want this line to be inside of the function. I want it to be outside of the function. So therefore, I'm going to backspace so that it goes right out at the beginning of the line. So that's why we had that red mark a while ago. So
Print result.
therefore, pardon me?
I'm saying print result.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do now.
Oh, print result. Oh, okay.
So we do the calculation by calling the calculate function with 10 and 5. We generate an output that we now store into result. And then we now can say, well, the result is result. You know that we would have to use a formatted or a F string. So let's save, clear our screen, and then let's execute. So Python proc3.py, and we're seeing here that it says the result is 15 as we anticipated. So now putting all of the concepts together, we have done an input, we have done some calculations, we have generated an output that we are going to return, because that's how we send the output from the inside of the function to the outside of the function by using the return keyword. Once we use the return keyword, then we need to have something on the outside of the function that will capture that output. In other words, we are assigning the output of the function to some variable. And then we can now do whatever we want to do with that variable. In this case, we're just printing it. All right, if that is understood, type U. All right, good. So I'm seeing most persons responding in the affirmative. And I don't see anyone indicating that they're having any challenges. So that's what we have just done here. So we talk about the function parameters or inputs, and we talk about the return values. Now, the next step in the chain is if we go about and we create a set of operations or functions, then we kind of want to have a way of distinguishing the functions from the main body of our program. And in other languages, you hear about the concept of a main program. This is where you really put the logic that you want to execute. We can do something similar in Python by making use of this is the construct here. If underscore underscore name underscore underscore equal equal, and in quotes, underscore underscore main underscore underscore. So this is just something that you just need to swap and know that whenever you're creating a main program, that is what you're going to do. So let's put that in action. So it's if underscore underscore. Sorry, somebody's coming into the room. So we say if underscore underscore, then we have the keyword name and then underscore underscore. So we have two underscores, then name, then underscore underscore. Now it's important that I tell you that it's underscore underscore, because if you just look at it with a naked eye, it just look like probably one underscore or a line. Yeah. but it's two underscore. So there's actually a space in between them, just that the way it is displayed, that is not going to be readily seen. Now, after the underscore at the end of name, then you have two equal signs. So equal, equal. And then you're going to have your double quotes. So equal, equal, and then double quotes. Now, inside the double quotes, you are going to have underscore, underscore, main, underscore, underscore. So underscore, underscore, main, underscore, underscore. And at the end, outside of the double quotes, you put the colon. And now what this says is this now becomes your main block or your main program. And the statements that you now want to execute, you're going to put it inside of your main statement. So note as well, the statements are going to be indented. So let's utilize the function that we have written and try and do something that might be more real to life. So let's say x is equal to int input enter num1. And then let us say that y is equal to int input, and then let's say enter num2. And then after that, what do we want to do? Well, we want to do the calculation. And let us say we're going to put that calculation in a variable called r. So r is equal to calculate. And what are we calculating? X and y. And then let us do a print at the end of that, which says the result of x and y is r. So I've done a chunk of things here. Let me get rid of those two execution lines that we had before. And let you have a look at the program in its totality. At the top, we have defined our function. This function is called calculate. It takes in two numbers, which are then added, and an output is generated, which is then returned. And then we now go to the main program. And inside the main program, we're doing a couple of things. We're prompting the user to enter two values, two integer values. And we're storing those values into X and Y, respectively. We're then taking those two values and we are passing them into the calculate function so that we can perform the addition. The calculate function will generate some results, some output, which we are then going to store inside of the variable R. And finally, we are doing a print that tells us what the result of X and Y is. So we save, and then we can execute this to test it out. So it's same Python prog3.py. When I execute, notice it asking me to enter num1. Let's say that num1 is 3. It then asks me for num2. Let's say that num2 is 7. Then we press enter, and it says the result of 3 and 7 is n. So we have now put all the concepts together. We have created our function that takes in input and returns an output. And we have made use of this function inside our main program by writing something that is more realistic, wherein we are communicating with the user, accepting the inputs from the user, passing these inputs into an appropriate function, getting the result from the function, and then displaying our final message that communicates what has happened to our user. So I give 2 minutes for that to gel, and then you can ask any questions for clarity. All right, so there is no question, which means that everything is understood. Everybody's happy. Oh, that's not where I should be. This is where I should be. And once you understand that, folks, then I mean, you are where I want you to reach. The additional things in here, just showing you that the same commands that we would have used directly, we can incorporate them either inside our functions or inside our main program. Notice here, we have a function that is making use of a if-else statement. So you can do that. In this one, we have a function that is actually making use of a loop. So we have a function called times table that is using a for statement to loop 12 times. And each time it loops, it multiplies the value of I by the value of n. So for example, n would represent the number that we want to display the timetable for. So n could be 3. And then what it means is we would display the 3 times table. And I mean, that's it. That is it. If you get all of that, folks, then you're on your way to programming competence. So, what are the questions that you have?
Is this worksheet shared already?
Which worksheet? This is not a
This,
worksheet.
this one that we're looking at.
No, man, this is not a worksheet, but this is on the portal, yes.
Oh, okay. I just want it so I can go practice.
Yeah, man, but it's not a worksheet. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's on the portal.
Well, I understand clearly. It's just
All right,
it's
good.
like you have a declarative statement, but within it you have
Decorative.
yeah, it's like a
Oh,
declaration. It's
oh,
set,
oh, oh.
but within that set you have certain competence or calculation. But then what happens is that you just call upon it when necessary, based off of your program environment.
All right. Well, once you understand it, I mean, then I'm good. And I think the rubber meets the road next week when you get in the worksheet and then you're now going to demonstrate that you fully understand. At that point, I will know who understand and who don't understand.
Sorry, did you use a shortcut every time you're doing the Python prog underscore 03.py? There a shortcut that you use instead of typing it all out?
Oh, yeah, you can use the up arrow or the down arrow.
Okay,
So
thank
up
you.
arrow carries you back to the previous commands. So just to illustrate so that persons know what you're asking.
Yeah, it function like the
Yeah.
command line, or you can call back the previous command.
Yeah, so I'm just going to demonstrate so that everybody on the same wavelength. So I'm here inside my terminal. I'm going to press the up arrow and notice that I'm toggling through all the commands that I would have done. So you're seeing some stuff there that don't even relate to you because I was using Git and I was building out something in Azure earlier today. But the point I'm making is you can go up and see your previous commands once you don't come out of the session, or you can use the down arrow and see the most recent commands. Yeah, so that was what was being asked. If there's a shortcut for us to just get back to commands without typing it out. By the way, a good observation, Christine.
It functions just like how the command prompt would function.
Well, truth be told, your terminal is your command prompt.
Yeah, this is PowerShell.
If you look over here, you see that it's PowerShell.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's integrated inside of the editor. The VS
So what's the
editor.
difference? Yeah, what's the difference between CMD and PowerShell?
Only
PowerShell is
difference.
updated.
Syntax.
The
No, man,
syntax
syntax is the same
is similar. However,
for the most part.
yeah, man, PowerShell. What PowerShell did was they basically integrated a few commands that you can use to now um, get or grab or install with an easier syntax. So instead of locating an executable, you can use, the get command to reach out to something. So it's kind of simpler. Like you can sort of like how you'd use the, the apt get update in Linux. You can just use the get command in PowerShell now.
All right. Truth be told, though, right now that's not relevant to us. Yeah, that's not relevant. We're using this just to execute a Python code. So the point I want everyone to take away without getting bogged down is we're using a command window, just like how you use a normal command window in Windows, just that VS Code has integrated this window inside of the editor. So you have an easier time. The same thing that I'm doing here, I could have done it externally once I am inside the correct folder, and I would get the same result. So it's not magic. All right, so, well, this is what I wanted to cover this evening. So if there are no more questions, we will terminate.
No, sir.
And
Come,
then,
give me a graphic interlude. Drop a graphics behind it.
no, I'm not doing graphics. We need to demonstrate that we understand this first. So there's no graphics. Graphics not on the syllabus. So when you demonstrate to me that we understand this that is on the syllabus, then we can talk about the other things which are not on the syllabus that can enhance an experience. Okay, but we have to demonstrate that we understand this to me first.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, man. So if there are no more questions on this or what we have covered already, then I terminate the class. And as soon as this is processed, I just put it up. So you should see it in the next half an hour or so that you can start going back through it and doing your own practice. In addition, I strongly recommend that all the other recordings that you have, that you go through them as well. Because come next week is serious code time. You have to be on top of your game. And being on top of your game means that you have to understand everything that we have done and be ready to rock and roll. So going once, going twice. All right, look like everybody good. All right then. So look out for the recording in a few. I think it would be called 7. I think the last one was 6 if my memory serves me well. So look out for that in a few, and then you get cracking on what you need to do. So take care, everyone. Stop share. And I'm going to terminate the session now.
Sir, have a good one.
Yeah, man, thanks. I appreciate it. Bless up.